Yo, 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 what is up? What is up? What's going on? Thank y'all for tuning in to another DnL&x Fitness live stream show. Yes, sir. I cannot hear my sound. This is crazy. All right, well, maybe y'all can hear the claps and the handshakes and all that stuff, but I can't hear the claps. Let me make sure this is working. Let me make sure I got this right. Yo, 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 what is up? What is up? What's going on? Thank y'all for tuning in to another DnL&x Fitness is it working? Show. Yes, okay, it's working. All right, as long as it's working on y'all's side, I'm good because I can't hear the soundboard on the other side. So hopefully we get this right today. But anyway, man, thank you for tuning in, doing a Saturday live stream, early morning live stream. Normally I don't do these, but I wasn't able to get this live stream off yesterday. Excuse me, because just had some stuff going on. I need to turn my fan on, it's super hot. But today I'm gonna go ahead and get this live stream off for trying to get this thing done because I want to get this one done because it just makes a lot of sense for me to do, and I just really had this one heavily on my mind. So seeing stuff going on the world and stuff, I figured this would be a good one, a good topic to touch on. I figured it would be. But anyway, if you're having a good Saturday, hopefully you are. Hopefully you start your day off right. But if not, let me let Mr. Chad break it down to you.
You're having a bad day? Did you die?
I got shot.
But did you die?
And as long as you did not lose your life, then you are still able to grow and grind and make something happen and make something good happen with yourself. So don't give up and keep pushing. Yes. All right. I literally have to look down at my sound bar to make sure when the sound is still playing, it's still not. But if you are, I also know we are simultaneously streaming on 4 platforms: YouTube, Twitch, Kick, and Rumble. If you see the thumbs up come up on your screen, do me a favor. Where is it at? It's gonna hit. There it is. Hit that like button on YouTube if you're watching on YouTube. If you're on Twitch, Kick, or Rumble, give your boy a follow. Greatly appreciate it. If you are on, if you want to contribute to today's show, Cash App, Venmo, Cash App Daniel 2888, Venmo Danny-Daniel-00. Yes, and that is it for the introduction. But we're gonna go ahead and dive into today's show. Yes, and we have to figure out exactly how this is going to work. This is going to be a pretty good one. I got tied up. I got a lot of stuff I got to go over. Let me give me some background music so I can hear some background music because, yeah, I need some sounds. I need some tunes. Can I hear that? I can't even hear that. Y'all can hear the background music, but I can't. What is going on with the sound today, boy? Is it this? No, that didn't help. How about this? Yeah. All right. So today's sound's going to be screwed up for me. It's going to be good for you. But we're going to make it work. Regardless of the situation I got going on over here, we're going to make it work. So screw it. Forget it. We're going to make it work. Anyway, what is a sanctuary state, or sanctuary as far as the political life that is going on in today's world? So I had to dive in because I want to figure out what this sanctuary stuff means. And when I dove in to figure out what sanctuary means, it was actually a rather interesting topic that I came across, and there's a lot of stuff that comes with it. And I figured if I'm gonna dive in and describe this stuff, I need to go on the full spectrum of it, because I looked into what sanctuary is, but then also there's something that refers to on the opposite end of it. So sanctuary is basically a place of refuge or safety. So a safe place basically is what sanctuary means by definition. And I'll show you right here real quick. We'll just take a look at it real quick. So sanctuary means place of refuge or safety. So, you know, as what we've been seeing lately. And as everybody knows, in the whole Minnesota conflict, they have a sanctuary state that's been going on, and we've been seeing a whole lot of conflict going on with all that. But then also on the opposite end, as I was doing my research, understanding what a sanctuary state is, I happened to find out something on the opposite end, which is a without sanctuary, so a non-sanctuary state. So it would probably mean something polar opposite of sanctuary. So not safe, not fun, not good, not, you know, just no safety whatsoever. So as I dove into it and I looked into this situation, it was really interesting to see that a without sanctuary state was a thing in the past, and that is what I have come to find out, understanding what without sanctuary really means, or what it is. And that's what we're going to start off with first. So since we have what sanctuary is, we're going to look at without sanctuary, which is basically the no protection or refuge from, at least in America. So in America at a point in time had a no sanctuary situation. They had a no sanctuary living quarters within America from like at least there's a book called Without Sanctuary, and within this book they took a time frame from like 1880 to like 1930 to 1960. I would say we'll say 1880 to 1960. And the name of the book is called Without Sanctuary, and Without Sanctuary is basically about this right here. It's about the collection of lynchings photographed in America that signified the African Americans who had no protection or refuge from white mobs. Local state governments, including law enforcement and judicial systems, failed to provide sanctuary or prosecute those involved in lynchings. All right, so as we know what Without Sanctuary is, we're going to start on that end of it first. We're going to look at Without Sanctuary first, and then we're going to move up into today's time to where we have a sanctuary state. We have sanctuary cities that are going on right now, and we're going to have to get a good understanding as to basically looking at something coming full circle, and it's been like 100 years or over 100 years of a sanctuary situation that has gone down in America, and seeing if sanctuary is good, if it's bad, or is it just the chick is coming home to roost from a, sins of the father, or like a karmic debt that has to be paid from long ago. So we're gonna dive in and look at this, and this is gonna be extreme. This is gonna be a very graphic show. I'm just gonna be honest with you. The beginning parts of the show is gonna be very graphic because we are gonna look at some stuff, but the stuff I have to look up is on YouTube. So hopefully they don't give me the third degree for looking up stuff that's on YouTube and try to make it seem like I'm the bad guy for putting this stuff out there, because I'm not. I'm just the one that's kind of putting together a show and just reporting on it. You know what I mean? So we're going to see how this whole thing pans out. It's going to be interesting to see how this goes. Hopefully they don't give me too much hell. Peter Parker, what is up? What's going on with you? Appreciate you. Thank you for stopping by on the show. Peter Parker, where you at? There you are. I see you right there. Thank you for the comment. Peter Parker. I like that name. Spider-Man. 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 All right, so going to dive into this show. We're going to start off on the without sanctuary portion of the show, which, like I said, is going to be very graphic. It's going to be hard to watch, but it's very needed, because looking at a society that's without sanctuary, it might help to be able to understand the situation that we see unraveling today. Because today what we see unraveling, when you look at Minnesota conflict, probably New York here shortly, maybe California, but for sure Minnesota is a good one that you can look at, because Without Sanctuary shows the atrocious things that happen to black people, African Americans, whatever you want to call it, in America, without the protection from state government officials, law enforcement, anybody. They were just left to and then the people who prosecute these crimes did not face any penalties. So they were able to do this stuff with no issues. So when we look at it from that perspective, and we're going to dive in and watch a video that's going to give us a very graphic and detailed understanding of what it was like. When we look at this, think about the people that you see. Okay, like I said, this takes place from like 1880 all the way up to like 1960. When you look at this, you have to think about, does this shape the minds of the people of today who we see conflicting? Meaning, you have liberals, we'll say liberal white women to be exact, who have a big, huge issue with like white supremacy. They basically look at things the complete opposite whenever it comes to their conservative parents or whatnot. But when you watch this video and you see people, you're going to see adults, you're going to see kids and children and stuff like that. These people in these photos are going to be like the grandparents or great grandparents of a lot of people that or a lot of white people that we see today. And then you have to ask yourself that these teachings that have been passed down to these people, not everybody is okay with these teachings that have potentially been passed down. So then this could kind of give you an understanding or a shape of the mindset of like the white liberal woman who is given so much pushback and given so much fight within the community of the white community. Because within the white community, we're seeing a really, really, really big fight go on right now. And we go from without sanctuary to what we have in place today is a sanctuary system. And from within, the way that sanctuary system was able to get put in place had to be from Americans selling out other Americans. That's just the only way it would work. You know what I mean? Because you have Ilhan Omar and you got the Somalis and all these people coming over here and doing what they do, but they wouldn't be able to get as far as they've gotten without help from the inside. So when you see this video and these things I'm about to show you, it kind of makes you think, and it's going to make you wonder, does the mindset or the past that they did to the Americans, the Black Americans, I hate to call them Black Americans because they are Americans, like the natives of this land, the history that these liberals have, they try to fight against it. So the fight that we're seeing is more of just a war within families, and then everybody's kind of caught in the middle of it. Okay, so let's just go ahead and just start out because we got to get straight to it in this video. So just a warning again, very graphic, but this is on YouTube. This ain't nothing that I have personally. I just found this video on YouTube, and it's, you know, we're gonna see what we're gonna see. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. So this first video is going to be a video from 60 Minutes. They aired a video of the photos of a lynching in a report that Oprah had did about the Without Sanctuary video, about the book called Without Sanctuary. So we're going to go ahead and watch this video. I'm going to interject in between because it's about a 6-minute long video, so I'm going to get in between, but we're going to watch the whole thing. And we're going to take a look at the Without Sanctuary book and see exactly what this thing is all about. All right, so let's go ahead and get this thing started. Let me mute this music and let's get right on to it. So here we go. Let's get this thing going.
A conversation with
Fair
60
use.
Minutes executive producer Jeff Fager.
Here we go.
Jeff, we're not used to seeing photographs of dead bodies on 60 Minutes, but the story on 60 Minutes this week shows devastating pictures of lynchings.
Lynchings became so acceptable, onlookers would send picture postcards to friends and family. This card, depicting the horrific image of a burned corpse, casually notes, "This is the barbecue we had last night."
For viewers who will be disturbed by these photos, what would you say to them? Why include them? Why include such graphic photos?
You know, I think that some people will be offended by seeing the photos, but it's so important to show them. For us, it really is. That's reality. That's what happened. Our story is about a part of history, really almost 80 years of American history, that isn't in the history books. We don't see these pictures. We don't talk about it, you know. And in the first line of the story, Oprah says it's a reckoning.
There is a reckoning taking place in America over
It
how
is,
we remember our
with history. And so
All right, so he mentions 80 years of history books. Now, when I interject, it's probably going to be a little bit behind. You're going to see me behind a little bit because I'm using my phone to try to hear the sound, because I can't hear the sound that you hear. I don't know what's going on with my audio. But I don't know when this video was made. That's one thing I don't know. But I'm pretty sure it was done maybe in like the 2000s or 90s or something, maybe the 2000s or whatever. But we'll go from like 100 years ago or more. At this point, at this day and age, that would be like 1926. So like 100, 125 years, 140 years ago. But this is a history that is like known, that is a part, and that's shaped a lot of situations that has happened in this country. It shaped a lot of situations, and it's been a huge, huge, huge situation that's caused a lot of division. And it's caused a whole lot of, whoops, let me pull this up. It's caused a lot of division, but it's also caused a whole lot of, you know, complete unfairness within a system. Because imagine living in a system and being in a system that treats you completely unfairly, but then you get the head start on the system because the competition that you had whenever it came from, you know, business. You know, you literally could go out to your business competition and just unalive them. You can go and just lynch your competition and then take over their spot. And nobody would do nothing about it or whatever they would do to you. And they would see you do it. They would see you literally go unalive the opponent or the competition. Doesn't have to be a reason. You don't face no law. The law enforcement might even help you do it. There's no judge. There's no prosecution. There's no crime for it. So this goes on for, easily 50 years. Easily. Probably more, but we're just going to take it from the context of this book. Easily 50 years. And just 50 years of just, destroying generations and and distilling generations within families and children and stuff like that. Now, think about the trauma that's being distilled in the children on both sides. Okay? On both sides of the coin, you have trauma being induced in the black community, from what's happening to what they see to how they're getting done, how they're getting treated, businesses being destroyed, families are being murdered, and all sorts of stuff like that. On the other side of it, you have the white people, okay? The white people who are doing the lynchings, who are, their kids are seeing this, their daughters are seeing this, their sons are seeing this. You know what I mean? And not everybody is okay with this. You know what I mean? Like, not all white people were okay with this. Not everybody is okay with hearing or seeing somebody get murdered or killed. So you have to think about the impact that it had on, families who would try to force their kids to be okay with this. Try to pass this down to their kids who rebelled against it and didn't want it, but since it was a part of their family, you know what I mean? It's like they would get disowned. So looking at this from that perspective, you have to think about the trauma that was being built on both sides as well. So then it'll bring you forward as to try to understand if this is how life was without the sanctuary, where you could unalive, where you could kill, you could murder your competition in business, all because of their color, and then take over their business, and then just and also leave a huge leave a very bad impact on the rest of that generation's family, killing the generation and kids, and then moving forward by taking all of their stuff, but then also impacting your own children, your own white children along the way, and then having to just live with this and pass down these stories from grandparents to grandchildren to aunts and nieces and nephews and stuff like that, and thinking everybody was going to be okay with it. And then also what we see in today's context of life, we see that a lot of people argue about white supremacy as a thing. And then we can look back on the history and see that this is what they see in their family history that they don't want to be a part of. They're fighting, they're rebelling against it. So we're literally seeing families fighting amongst each other of like generation versus generation, because now the older generation that were doing these things is going out, and the younger generation are pushing forward. And now they're able to turn the table because they don't like this old way of thinking. And you see it. You can see them fighting the old way of thinking. And that's what we're witnessing here as this thing goes on. But let's continue, because this gets better. So here we go.
So we have to show them.
So you're saying that if you don't show the photo, sometimes there's no story.
There isn't a story. We self-censor a lot in the news business, and we're very careful what to show and not show the American audience.
And you think that that news executives are too careful?
Yes, I do. The power of television is about showing what really happened.
So Terry, can you just pull up the Jesse Washington photograph for a second so we can talk about our options? There are stories that come along as a producer. The minute you hear about it, you just can't stop thinking about it, and you know that it's an important story that you want to share with the 60 Minutes audience, and that's exactly how I felt about this story. I'm Denise Chetta, and I'm a producer at 60 Minutes. Yeah, I think the one where the guy is lifting him up on his shoulders is
more powerful.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Did you think about children and whether children should see these photos?
Yes, I thought about that a lot. I have 3 children, and I asked them, did you learn about lynching? Do you know anything about lynching? And all 3 of them said no. Like, we heard the word, but we never really knew what period or who the victims were. And so that actually made me feel you know, like it's even more important to educate the next generations about what happened.
Keep in mind, there were children at...
Okay, looking at this situation right here. Seeing this right here. Hold on. Let's let it go.
Where they lynched people.
Look at how many people are at this situation. Look at how many people are here just to see this situation happen. Look at all these people. I think the dude said they're dressed in their Sunday best. They're taking pictures. You see men and women all here to watch this happen. Think about that. Think about this. They're all sitting here watching this situation go down. And like I said, this took place between 1880 and like up until like 1960. So we'll just say like between 1880 and 1930. Now, like I said, these people have children. So if these people have children, you know, these people in today's time, these people would be either great-grandparents, grandparents. These people would either be great, and then grandparents. These people would all be. So do you know the mindset is still passed down? And then having to see like this book being written and these photos that these people have taken. How many photos do you think still lurk around these people till this day? Do you think these people still probably kept some of these awful photos till this day? And just to think that this is the mindset that when you hear the liberal side talk about they hate white supremacy so much, and we look back and we see stuff like this, they're fighting against their own family. It's like it's a family fighting against each other. We're seeing the younger generation combat their older generation. Because if we look at President Trump right now, right? Look at President Trump. He was, let's look at Trump. Actually, that's a good question. Looking at Trump, he was born, Trump. You were born in 1946. 1946, okay? Jesus. So he's born in 1946, okay? So him being born in 1946, and then we can actually find his parents and stuff like that. Let's see, the fourth. Okay, let's see. Trump is born in 1946. So then let's see his family life. Let me see, where you at? Let's find this out real quick. This won't take me no time at all. Well, actually, probably will. It shouldn't be too hard to find, but it will be hard to find because he has a long thing. Parent, there we go, Fred Trump. All right, so his father was born in 1905. Passed away in 99. Okay, so he was born in 46. His father was born in 1905. Okay. And then let's see if we can find out his parents. Frederick Trump, born in 1869. So when we're watching these videos, right? When we're watching this video, that's one thing we could take into context is to actually think about that. Think about people who are as old as Trump. Sorry, thought my kid was doing something. Think of people as old as Trump. And they're doing these things. But you can see that they're clearly up against a younger generation versus an older generation way of thinking. Because as we're looking at this older generation, this is an older generation that treated that treated a completely different demographic worse than dogs, worse than animals. And then you're expecting your children later on in life to grow up and be okay with this. Some will, some won't. And then eventually in due time, they're going to fight it. And that's what we're seeing this fight. We're seeing this fight amongst them. Oh, I got to change that banner. We're seeing this fight amongst them. They're fighting each other because they don't want this as part of their history anymore, because this is what they know. They know this about their history. They can't hide this. This is a part of their history. So when you hear them say they hate white supremacy, they know that they know that this is in their background. They know that this is in their family lineage. Like, could you imagine if this was your grandpa or your great grandpa? Could you imagine if your grandma, your great grandma was in here? Like imagine that mindset, imagine that thought. And then to know that, some of the competition that they got rid of was competition for their businesses, but this is how they treated them. Kyrie, shut up! So just to know like how they did the competition was like this. And there was no recourse. There was no justice for these people. Nobody went to jail. The judges, the cops, they were all in on it. And then you got this huge financial head start. And then now your kids have, then when you learn about the history, you can only imagine, like, they were like, dang, grandpa, this is what you did. This is how you got down. Grandma, you too. So when you look at times today, this is a fight that we're seeing amongst the white people and their kids and their families. This is what we see. This is what we're seeing them fight over. Okay? But let's go ahead and keep going. Let's continue. Let me pull this back up. Let's keep going. Here we go.
That's one of the surprises to me in the whole story is that, in one case, 15,000 people showed up in a town square in their Sunday best.
This was one of the more remarkable photographs that we included in the story. It's the lynching of Jesse Washington in Waco, Texas. And he was tortured while people looked on. And there's one photograph from this lynching where you actually see a man holding to get a better view. There was a lot of community acceptance of these crimes, and you can see that clearly in this photograph.
Some of them are shocking, and you can't get them out of your head when you see them. I keep thinking about a few of them that, one is the woman that we show. I keep thinking of her.
This photograph is Laura Nelson, who was actually lynched with her son. If you look at the full photograph, she's hanging from a bridge, and on the other side of her bridge is her teenage son.
I keep thinking of Wes Johnson, who was
Now, looking at this photo right here. This photo right here is crazy. Looking at this. A woman and her teenage son. Now, if you look up here, look at the people up here. Look at this. Look at all these people up here. Now, look right here. This looks like a little 10-year-old boy. This probably is like a 10-year-old boy. These are little kids and teenagers along with adults. Along with adults. Could you think about this? These are little kids and teenagers along with adults, and this is what they're doing. This is what they're teaching. This is what they're raising up. So then when these kids get older and they start having kids in the year 1905, 1946 or something like that, you don't think that this mindset is easily passed down But then at the same time, when they have their kids, do the children accept this, or do they rebel against it? Because you got to remember, all because these people grew up this way doesn't mean that their kids did. Yes, they probably tried to distill it into their children, but you know, kids grow up, they have a mind of their own because they live in a whole different generation than you did. So generations change, times change. But yet you still try to, you know, have the older generation, like grandparents and great grandparents or whatnot, try to push this on. This is what we're seeing, is we're seeing this fade out. Because that's what you hear on the liberal side. You hear this white supremacy talk all the time. And this is what they see, and this is what they know in their family tree. And they fighting against it. They're rebelling against it. They don't want it. And this is just my humble opinion. This is what I think. I'm like, because this is a without sanctuary situation. And it's going to lead us up to sanctuary situation. So this is what they have, and this is what they know of a time of without sanctuary. And this is a part of their family tree. This is what they know. Now let's go down to the comment section and just read what some of these people say in the comment section real quick. Let's just take a look. All right, it says right here. It says the next day they would go to church. Think about that. Somebody says, I can't read that one. It says the kids in those pics became politicians. He says, as ugly as it is, these stories need to be told. 70 years ago, these acts took place. These children are watching these horrific events and are seen smiling at times. These kids are now grandmothers and grandfathers that have taught the beliefs of hatred and racism to the next generation that we are dealing with now. Bingo. That's exactly what I've been saying. Exactly. What's sad is that most of the onlookers probably considered themselves Christians. You can't tell people to move on and forget atrocities like that. It's never going to happen. Things like this stay in your mind forever. What is mind-blowing is that people took their children to watch this horrible act. Unbelievable. This just shows the mindset of these people, and it's so sad. Exactly. So this right here, to me, in a sense, gives a little bit of context, because I still think the liberal people take it too far. I still think they take it too far, because they do. But this explains the mindset of the battle that we're seeing between the liberals and the conservatives. This is part of it. This is part of it for sure. This is for sure a part of it, because the liberals know that this is their grandparents. This is their great grandparents. They know this. They know that this is how they came up, and this is their upbringing. They know. But let's continue. Let's keep going.
The other side of her bridge is her teenage son.
I keep thinking of Wes Johnson, who was the first victim in the story. That's the only picture of him in his life, as far as our reporters were able to determine.
And you were able to get this photograph from somebody who was actually there?
Yes, one of his relatives.
One of his relatives was there.
That's a devastating photograph.
It sure is.
James Johnson and Faye Walker Howell, who we met, the descendants of Wes Johnson, they both very much felt like the image of Wes Johnson should be seen.
And why?
I think that seeing what actually happened will open up the eyes of the American people. The same thing that happened with the image.
I'm a little bit behind on what you're hearing, but going back to what this lady was saying here previously, when Oprah was talking about the relatives who were there. Could you imagine the relatives being there watching this happen? Now, in a minute, this video is almost finished. In a minute, speaking of a relative being there and watching some of this happen, the next video that we're going to look at, because this one's almost finished, we're going to actually see an interview of some of the victims, of some of the people who were there that watched this stuff happen. And we're going to hear it from people who actually were there and saw these things firsthand. And of course they're older, but still they were there firsthand, and they seen some of these things happen. Because like I said, some of this stuff took place in 1880 all the way up to 1960. And I don't know exactly when this particular interview that they have on 60 Minutes, I don't know when this actually aired. So they said 70 years ago. I mean, if you go from 70 years ago of the year, I don't know, 2010, that's like 1940s. You know what I mean? So whenever this was aired, I don't, that's the only thing I don't know. But we're going to see people in the next video I show you, they're going to speak on, they're going to tell you what they saw when these people were getting, you know, unalived and lynched. They're going to tell you how it happened and how it went down. So you can only imagine the onlookers who sat here and watched their relatives, their family members. Or what about the kids who had to go see this, the white kids? What about the white kids who had to go see this because their parents probably forced them to come because they wanted them to see this? Think about that. Not all the kids probably wanted to go. You see some kids there, you know, some kids were watching. I mean, some of the wives probably didn't want to go. Think about that. Think about this from all different sides. Not just one side where the black people are just getting lynched like crazy, but also think about the white people who have to face the trauma of not wanting to go, not wanting to see it, having to be around that energy of evil, people who thought that this was okay to imagine being around that energy of evil all the time. And you don't agree with your dad doing these lynchings or your mom, or you don't agree with it as a kid, but you're stuck in it. You're trapped in it. You probably vow that when you have kids down the line, you would never allow your kids to have that mindset. Think about that. Look at it from both sides, but think about it because look at where we are today with when you see the liberal-minded person hating white supremacy and they're fighting racism and all this stuff. This is like some of the reasons of fighting that we see amongst them. It's within their own house. They're fighting within their own house. But let's continue. Let's keep this thing going. We're almost done.
Teal situation. His mother wanted the world to see what
The casket left over.
what hatred had done.
The descendants of Wes Johnson talked about these photos, but there are also descendants of the white spectators who will be watching this story.
Yes.
That's a difficult part of this story.
Yeah, I think it is. I think that that is part of the reckoning.
Part of this.
Look at how many people is here, man. Like, that's the thing I can't get over. Look at how many people are here. Look, and look, you know, she knows that, I mean, depending on what part of the world she from, she know that this could be some of her family out here, or her family took place in some of this. You know what I mean? She knows this. Like, look at how many people there is just for this one dude. For this one dude. All these people are here to watch. Just think about that. And then think of some of the stuff that they did. Some of these men were castrated. They cut off their private parts. Think about that. And look, right here, there's a little boy right there. It's a little boy right here. Think about this, dude. These are two little boys right here. Think about this, dude. And then these boys going to have kids and try to pass this down to their children. I mean, and then all because they had to witness this doesn't mean that they were okay with it. They were probably forced here because they had to. Because if they thought differently, then of course these people wouldn't, you know what I mean? They was probably going to catch an ass whooping at home like you wouldn't believe. Because if you can do somebody like this, bro, could you imagine back then, no police, no cops, no law enforcement would stop you from committing something like this to somebody. The cop would watch and help you. The judge would probably even be there to help you. So as a kid here, if you went against this or didn't want nothing to do with it, you couldn't speak out. because your daddy will probably beat you like crazy because nobody's gonna stop him. Clearly there's evil like pulsing through that man's veins. You ain't stopping him. So that mindset is being forced. And in these kids, they probably grew up and was like, I vow to never allow my children to think like this. Although they did benefit, they did benefit from, you know, white supremacy. However, they probably had to play the chameleon role and blend in, which is probably why now we see the sanctuary states that we see today, which is probably why now we see Americans selling out Americans, which is why now we see the older generation of white people bumping heads and fighting with the newer generation of white people. Is what we see. We see the far left and we see the far right. We see them clashing with each other. And again, like I said, the far left, in my sense, go too far. You know what I mean? As far as like, you know, going after the children, making the children's trans and all that stuff. And they taking it too far, you know, opening the borders and letting everybody in and all that. It's like, it's taking it too far. But from that aspect of white supremacy, I understand that part now, because this is what makes me think about it. It's like they are probably fighting. They don't want this mindset in it no more. And they're looking like they're pretty successful at fighting for the change that they're going for. It looks like they're pretty successful at it, because when you think about that and you look at it, in order for a country to come in and tear you down from within, it had to have help from, like people within your country, traitors is what we would call them. Like, those people would have to be within the country in order to make these changes happen. You know what I mean? Like, people wonder, like, hey, how these people get in? How they do this? How they do that? Well, probably some people don't want this they don't want this mindset no more. So they bringing them in and letting them change it. This is where I think a lot of the white supremacy hatred comes from. It probably comes from their own children. Not just black people. It probably comes from their own children, which is why we're able to see today how a lot of people are able to get in the positions that they're in, because we're seeing a lot of these people sell out a lot of we're seeing a lot of Americans sell out a lot of Americans, but it's probably just, the children of all of these people right here trying to change what it is that their grandfathers and great-grandfathers and grandparents did, their great-grandmothers and stuff like that, because the women ain't innocent either. The women was in on this too. So we're seeing a huge change, and this is a without sanctuary. And it's ironic, nowadays we have a sanctuary. Now, the only thing that's crazy is that if with today's society, we have a sanctuary society, but it's like, I don't understand why they did the sanctuary society. Well, actually, I'll take that back. I do understand. It makes sense as to why they did a sanctuary society, but they had to go from all the way east to get the people and bring them back. To me, I understand why they did it. Because if they would have did any other black person that they recognize, that the white supremacists recognize, it would have probably got shot down. But you use like Somalis or something from across the world, you wouldn't really be able to like put your finger on them. They wouldn't look at them as these kind of blacks that they know. They probably looked at them like, whatever. But not knowing that, the black people that you feared, the ones you were so worried about not giving reparations to, you look at it today, these Somalians and a bunch of other people, not just Somalians, but a bunch of other people are getting reparations out the ass. They get it out the ass. I mean, they got billions and billions and billions of dollars from the help of other Americans who let them come in and make a sanctuary state, because they probably did their history and realized and remembered the history of what a without sanctuary looked like. Now, also, you have to also think that religion does play a part in this too, changing the religion from Christian to Muslim, or from Christian to Islam. So it's not just a racial thing; it is a religious thing as well. It doesn't just change. It doesn't just change at race. It does change at religion too. But looking at this on that level, you kind of think to yourself like, man, is this really how this is going down? I mean, it's a potential way. It seems like a catalyst as to what's starting all this off and what's getting us in the direction that we're headed, because we're seeing them fight from within. But let's continue this video. We're almost finished.
I think that that is part of the reckoning as well. We tend to think of it as the South, but it happened across the country.
The lynchings?
Yes, yes. They found more than 4,000, and no doubt there's far more than that.
When you see these faces of children and women and smiling men, I mean, how do you make sense of that?
Well, I think if you look through history, one thing that becomes obvious is that any group of people can be whipped into a frenzy or a fury, can do things that are abhorrent.
Anyone is capable of it.
I think so.
You learned a lot from this story.
I learned a lot from the story. I think everybody will learn a lot from the story. You know, it's hard to believe this happened in America.
Now, looking at this part right here, where he did the this right here, he said 4,000 of these happened, which clearly we know that way more than 4,000 happened without a shot of a doubt. Where is it at right here? He said like 4,000 of these happened, but that's 4,000 that was recorded that they found. Clearly a lot more happened, but look at all of where it is. Look at all of where it is. Of course, we all know it's the South, the Midwest for sure. But look at all this. And then, you know, it's spread out sparingly throughout the, but again, this is only what they caught. This is only what they saw. This is only what they have documented. You know what I mean? Because some of the bodies were burned up. Or not some, but probably a lot of the bodies were burned up. And I don't know where Minnesota is. I know here's Michigan. So maybe Minnesota's like right here in this region right here somewhere. But yeah, as you can see, for sure, that this happened a hell of a lot. And not everybody was cool with it. Who the hell wants this in their family line? But it is what it is at the end of the day. But now we're seeing the tides have turned, that the tables have turning. And things are not gonna, you know, things ain't gonna, you know, be the way they used to be, because the white supremacists are not fighting against color anymore. They're fighting against their own children. You know what I mean? Plus, they're fighting against the religious aspect of it, from Christian to Islam. Now that's starting to have a clash. So just when you think you had the dominant race and the dominant religion, now that's even changing. That's even going out. That's even going out the window. So what we're seeing is a huge change. And a lot of the times I look back and whenever I look at it, I kind of step back and have to think like, this isn't something that you're supposed to like, at least for the Black Americans or the original Americans, the Native Americans, the Black people. This doesn't seem like something that they should be a part of. They should kind of step back and be like, whoa, okay. Like, because clearly when you look at this, the fight that's happening, it's like, you ain't got no dog in this fight. You don't have no dog in this fight, because you would think you do, but you really don't, because everything that they were worried about that you would do if you got power, it's like it's happening from a different demographic of people. And what's crazy is the population is declining for Americans or white people, in the population for Muslims or other, or even not even just Muslims, but other races of all kinds is going up. So as we're seeing that happen, you know, you can clearly see that this is a huge turn of tables, but looking at it without sanctuary, seeing the history on how this took place and how this happened, it was only a matter of time, because you can't have a foundation like that. Your foundation without sanctuary of that is not going to have a good outcome forever. Your foundation is just completely faulty and completely shaky. There's nothing solid that's going to stand on that at all. Especially nowadays, we hear all we hear all these stories of, you know, the trauma and stuff like that, but now we're seeing it's like they're fighting amongst each other in their own house. The battle is amongst each other in their own house. Now we're going to take a look at another video. Sorry. We're going to take a look at another video. And this video is going to speak of eyewitnesses of the Marion lynching. This happened in Marion, Indiana, August 7th, 1930. August 7th of 1930 in Indiana. We're going to hear these people who were eyewitnesses who saw this actually happen. Listen to how they describe this. All right. And just think about this. Listen to how they describe it and think about this. And then think to yourself, if these people had children, would they pass this mindset down? Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. But just think about this. And this lynching happened in 1930. Okay. So with that being said, just keep these things in mind and then bring it to present day. But let's go ahead and play this video for you right here. Here we go.
Yeah, the crowd was beginning to gather as soon as we were put in jail. And by morning, they were cluttering up the jail yard. And all that day, they kept coming. And by nightfall, there was 10 to 15,000 whites out there screaming for the blood of us three blacks.
Very tense feeling among everybody. And you felt it all over town.
The sheriff had told the police not to shoot out there. There were women and children. And four big white men got some sledgehammers in their hands, and they started knocking on the cement blocks and throwing around the steel door that was the entrance to the jail.
And they come dragging one of the boys.
Okay, I'm a little bit behind, like I said, because I can't hear it on here. I have to like watch on my phone, and my phone is a little bit behind like you are. The older white lady, she said that it's a very tense feeling, and you could feel it all over town. All over town, a tense feeling, like 10 to 15,000 coming after three people. A very tense feeling all over town. Think about this. Kids can feel it. Think about the children. Think about that. Think about the children that was feeling this. And imagine him having kids and grandbabies. You think maybe he did, maybe he didn't want his children to have that same ideology growing up? Because everybody couldn't, even if people disagreed with it, from a white person perspective, even if people disagreed with it, they were kind of forced to go along with it, because you could get killed and nothing would happen to you, because because there was like what were they gonna do about it? They could go kill you somewhere and then just blame it on a black person and say, oh, this black person shot him, he killed him, or whatever. They can blame it on anything and just say it was a black person that did it. So you're kind of like stuck in a rut of a situation that you're in. So now your children, generations down the line, they don't want this no more. And we're seeing it happen. We're seeing the tables turn, the tides are turning. But let's continue with this video as they continue to describe how they unalived these three boys out of jail. Here we go.
Is down out of the jail. They took him right down the sidewalk. Everybody was kicking, hitting him, and everything else. And there was a Model T Ford Coupe that a woman was standing up there and just, they was all going crazy. And she jumped down. She had high heels. I seen this happen. And her high heels just scraped a hole, just like cut with a knife down his back. And they pulled him out, and they drug him up there by a car. And they took him off of there and put him out, hung him up on the maple tree.
And he reached up to get hold of the rope to keep it from choking him. So they let him down and broke his arms so he couldn't hang on to the rope. They pulled him up again as we went by.
She's sitting here describing this. He tried to hold himself up. Since he was trying not to get, and again, he's probably already beaten viciously, stabbed the guy, what else? Tried to hold himself up, took him down, broke his arms, and put him back up there again. And just, I mean, and she's telling you, she's sitting here witnessing this and watching this. Now, here's the thing about this right here. Looking at this lady. One thing you probably may or may not know about women. She could have gotten some hits in on dude. You can't just say she was just a spectator. She probably have participated in quite a few of these. Think about that. This lady probably participated in quite a few of these. She probably hit, beat, kicked on some people as they were getting lynched. Like, she probably was a participant in these, and she has children. I'm not gonna sit here and call her innocent whatsoever, but clearly she was close enough to see all this go down. She was there. You know what I mean? Like, think about these things, and to think that this mindset, this bloodline is supposed to pass on unscathed, unmarked for the children that they end up reproducing. And that goes for anybody, because even in the Bible, Israel had to face consequences for their actions. They ain't no different. You know what I mean? But just hearing how all of this is taking place, and to think, were there kids around? Did kids watch this go down? How old was she when this happened? This is they said this happened in 1930. I don't know what year this video was made. She could have been 20 when it happened. She could have been 15 when it happened. Think about these things. And then these people have kids as they grow up and get older. And now you think that when they talk to grandma that they want to hear that grandma was part of this? Think about that. And then think about the liberal mindset today and why all this mental illness and all this, all this stuff go on. Like, they probably not vibing with this. They like, we don't want nothing to do with that. And to think about something. Trump probably reminds a bunch of these people of their grandparents. He probably do. He probably remind them of their grandparents or their great granddaddy. And who's to say how they feel about their granddad or their great granddad? Like, think about that. Think about that. So that's why these liberal these liberal people probably fight so hard against this. They fight hard against it, and they have no problem, going, because remember, there were abolitionists back in the day. Like, if you go further, way back, there were abolitionists out there. There were white abolitionists, there were Jewish abolitionists. Nobody agreed with how people were treated like this. You always had abolitionists that wanted to free slavery or was against the brutal treatment of slaves. And you're not supposed to treat your slaves brutally at all. You're not supposed to. A slave is just when you're in debt to someone. Doesn't mean it gives you the right to degrade them and treat them like trash. You know what I mean? But You know, Trump probably reminds a bunch of these people nowadays, these young kids nowadays, of their grandparents and great grandparents, which then in turn they may despise, they may hate. So that's why we're seeing this turn from within. You know, that Islam comes in and agrees with their ideology. That's all it takes. Is an agreement with their ideology. And I'm like, yeah. Free for all. We agree. And we all know that, you know, when you go radical left, like liberals, when they're radical, like they're extreme liberals, the liberal mindset on the extreme side does not coincide with Islam. But however, it's Islam's golden ticket to get in on politics, because, you know, the left is like trans and gays and LGBTQ and abortion and all that. Islam ain't about that, but they will support that because that's a good way for them to get in. That's a good way for them to slide their way in and get into politics and Congress and senates and governors and mayors. It's a good move. It's a good segue in, even into the military, which I'll show you that later on. It's a good segue to get in. And they're willing to let them in because they're not just looking at the bigger, grander picture of things. You know, the New World Order, the One World Government, the NWO, the thing that's to come, the Antichrist. They're not looking at that big situation. It's like a revenge type policy that some of these people have against their own kind, but not knowing that there's a deeper evil on the rise. But let's let her finish. Let me let the lady finish. We're almost done with this one. Here we go. Oh, I guess we were done. My bad. Okay. America's Black Holocaust Museum. Jesus. Didn't know that was a thing. I never want to go see that. That's brutal. But yeah, just think about those things. All right. Now, I have one more video I'm going to show you. It's only a couple minutes long. But looking at how this goes, do you kind of get the picture that I'm painting for you whenever you take a look back on how things are, on like how things go, or how things are going at this present time? In this present time, right now, of what we're seeing, we're getting a good understanding of what a without sanctuary world looks like. So now we can go ahead and fast forward and then move towards a sanctuary society. I think I skipped that next video. We can go ahead and look at what a sanctuary society is. So let's go ahead and take a look. CBS News, they had a description of understanding of what a sanctuary city is, and they're going to break down. And they're going to break down what a sanctuary city is. So now we've looked at what a without sanctuary city was. Now let's move forward and see what a sanctuary city is and how it works and what it can look like moving forward, as we've seen in Minneapolis, how it protects people from said things. So we're going to hear what they say. Then I'm going to go in and read a bunch of different things that I found to get a deeper understanding on how this works. So here we go. Let's do CNBC News, what they have to say about a sanctuary city. Here we go. And shout out to whoever this is, looking nice.
The issue with trying to define a sanctuary city is that it can mean a variety of different things depending on the place. So broadly speaking, it can be defined as cities, counties, or states with laws dictating how much local jurisdictions can cooperate with federal immigration officials. So there are 11 states that have made themselves sanctuary states, and hundreds of cities and counties that have their own range of policies. For example, Chicago, they have a so-called welcoming city ordinance. And that means that they do not ask about immigration status or use that to deny city services. Officials also are not allowed to provide immigrations and customs enforcement support. And then there is Clayton County, that's in Georgia. It has a much narrower definition. Officers do not honor ICE requests to detain migrants for deportation. So many sanctuary city laws revolve around ICE detainment requests. Here's how it works. Essentially, when you're arrested and you're booked for a crime, law enforcement takes your fingerprints, and then those fingerprints are automatically sent to federal databases, including one ICE maintains for unauthorized immigrants. Now, ICE can send a detainer request to ask local police to hold a person until the agency arrives. At sanctuary cities, however, they do not enforce those requests. That's the difference. So why would a city do this? Well, mostly, it has to do with obviously ensuring immigrants feel comfortable reporting and cooperating with criminal investigations. If someone's worried about deportation for themselves, their family, their friends, they are much less likely or willing to assist the police. For some cities, though, it's also about the financial costs of assisting ICE. Federal officials are not required to reimburse local law enforcement for the costs of housing individuals awaiting deportation. One thing that is important to make clear, sanctuary cities do not completely shield immigrants from deportation or prevent them from being prosecuted for a crime. They simply dictate just how much local...
Okay, I couldn't hear what you said at the very end because, like I said, I can't hear. I'm just multitasking. But as we can see, so they gave us a very good breakdown of how a sanctuary city works and why cities might enact sanctuary cities. Now, I had to do some digging for myself because I want to understand exactly how this works. And I found a few things that had to do with sanctuary cities. And it was pretty interesting when you sit down and you look at it. And I'm going to show you what I found when it comes to sanctuary cities and how these things work. All right, so right here, what we have is a little bit of an understanding of what a sanctuary city is. And she did some good explaining, but I want to go ahead and dive in deeper and do some more reading as well. So if we go right here, here's the sanctuary city. So sanctuary cities are cities and states can become sanctuaries by adopting a range of policies that limit cooperation with the federal immigration enforcement, specifically ICE. These policies can include providing legal assistance for immigrants, reforming the criminal justice system to reduce migrants' contact with it, enhancing immigrant services such as healthcare and higher education incentives. Right here, it says right here, these policies can include providing legal assistance for enhancing immigrant services such as healthcare and higher education incentives. Initiatives. Good Lord, initiatives. There's the word, initiatives. Now, this right here, this explains the daycare centers. This explains the sanctuary daycare centers. So this explains why the sanctuaries have daycare centers, because it's enhancing immigrant services such as healthcare and daycare center or higher education initiatives. So this explains why we see so many of those, because they're getting legal assistance for these things. And it says sanctuary policies involve limiting cooperation with the federal immigration authorities, providing legal aid, and reforming criminal justice systems. So the sanctuary cities, they have a sense of protection about them. If you look at it, there is a sense of protection within them. They have legal aid and reforming criminal justice systems. Now, excuse me, looking at this, we can also see that there are a bunch of sanctuary cities, but let's look at more of what they are generally considered as legal. It says right here that sanctuary cities, they are generally considered legal, as federal law cannot compel local jurisdictions to perform immigration enforcement. They do that on their own. Sanctuary jurisdictions, they have a constitutional right to limit their involvement in enforcing immigration laws, with the 10th Amendment supporting their stance. Sanctuary policies generally comply with federal law, as the 10th Amendment protects jurisdiction from the federal compulsion in immigration enforcement. So now they have allegedly, I don't know if this is true or not, I'm just reading what I see right here. Allegedly, they have constitutional right to limit their involvement in enforcing immigration laws. Now, looking around to see how far this goes, it shows right here, the Department of Justice, they have a list of sanctuary cities. This is August 5th, 2025. So as of August 5th, 2025, the Department of Justice website, they have a list of sanctuary cities. Now look at how many they have. All right, so now that we know what sanctuary cities are and how they're protected and what's done, look at how many that the DOJ shows that they have. On April 2025, Trump signed an executive order protecting American communities from criminal aliens. The executive order recognized that some state and local officials continue to use their authorities to violate, obstruct, and defy the enforcement of federal immigration laws. And it is imperative that the federal government restore the enforcement of the United States law. The executive order, directed by the Justice Department in collaboration with the Department of Homeland Security, to publish a list of jurisdictions accordingly. The following states, cities, and counties have identified as sanctuary jurisdictions, and we have as followed: California, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, DC, Illinois, Minnesota, Nevada, New York, Oregon, Rhode Island, Vermont, and Washington. Then you have these counties, and then you have these cities. So you have all these are sanctuary places that are protected, right? All right. In recent months, the Justice Department, they filed several lawsuits against sanctuary jurisdictions seeking to compel compliance with federal law, including one against New York. Recently, the mayor of Louisville agreed to revoke their sanctuary policies following a letter from the Justice Department threatening legal action. So revoke their sanctuary policies. So this one happened in New York, but we'll see how far that goes. Okay, so we see a bunch of these have. Now, the only thing that's setting these sanctuary cities back, or that's protecting these sanctuary cities, is not protected. The only thing that's combating these sanctuary cities is Trump. That's the only thing that's combating them, is Trump. Now he has a task up against him. He has a huge task up against them because they have a lot of if there wasn't a president fighting against sanctuary cities, they would just steamroll and roll over everything. Now, when you understand what a sanctuary city is, doesn't it now kind of make sense when you look back at what I showed you without sanctuary? When I show you that video and all of the white supremacy stuff that happened without sanctuary, now you have a established, set up, multiple established states that have sanctuaries in them, and they're protecting against, but this time it's not protection against just white supremacy or racism, quote unquote. That's a catalyst, but what's really being used is the fact that the Christian and Islam thing, radical Islam, is coming in and it's changing, and it's gonna try to change the law. That's the thing. You can use racism as a front, but the thing is, you're trying to change it using radical Islam to come in and change it. That's going to be the main thing that you see. Now, when you look at this American Immigration Council, this was February 21st, 2025. And they are speaking on what are so-called sanctuary policies. Well, what they say that there's really no universal definition of a sanctuary policy. And they're saying this: despite the nationwide debate, there is no clear definition of what it means for a state or local government to adopt sanctuary policies. Sanctuary policies take many forms and generally fall into the following categories. So it's almost like a gray area that they found. But when I showed you the previous video with the video in the book called Without Sanctuary, seeing how blacks were treated and hung and lynched and killed and all that stuff, when we saw what happens without sanctuary, it was a complete atrocity that occurred. But now, moving into the future, now the kids have grown up. Now a lot of these liberal kids are against their white supremacist parents, and then now the Islam is able to move in and use that as an angle to get in America and politics and use it to their advantage. Now we have a gray area with sanctuary. Now they generally fall into the following categories: policies restricting the ability of state and local police to make arrests for federal civil immigration violation or detain individuals on civil immigration warrants. Also, policies prohibiting agreements in 287G through which immigration and ICE deputize local enforcement officers to enforce federal immigration law. Policies that prevent local governments from entering into a contract with the federal government to hold immigrants in detention. Policies preventing immigration detention centers. Policies restricting the police or any other city worker from asking about the immigration status. That's why ICE is asking. Policies restricting and sharing of certain information on immigrants with federal government. Policies restricting local police responses to federal immigration detainers. And policies refusing to allow ICE into jails without a judicial warrant. So this sanctuary is literally, it's like when you look at it, it's almost like the state is able to combat against the federal government. But what they did was, now what we have in Minnesota and what we just found out, what we have in all these other places, not just Minnesota, but we have these in all these places now, and Trump is the only one fighting it. We have the Somalis who are being used, and they put them in a sanctuary position. Now, the Somalis are a very tight-knit community. All right, they're a very tight-knit community, and they're Islams. They're Somalian Islams, or Muslims, whatever you want to call it, right? Now, the way the white people treated the black people without sanctuary, according to that book and what I showed you, they were so afraid of how black people would be treated over time if they gave them the position, the authority of fair treatment, because they were like, well, how are they going to treat us if they get on top? Well, what ends up happening is, in my opinion, this is what I think, all this time you ain't been paying attention, but your own children, your own grandchildren, your own, all of the children that you raise who know they have that in their bloodline have now went over and brought these people over here, and now they are able to probably learn the history of without sanctuary. Now they're able to gain reparations that you were afraid to give, and now they're able to get legal aid and all of this stuff that I read to you, and they're able to get health care and legal aid and higher education initiatives, as it shows right here. Cities and states can become sanctuaries by adopting a range of policies, and it eliminates the cooperation with ICE. And then on top of that, these policies can include legal assistance. What assistance do they get? Well, first, they're going to reform the criminal justice system to reduce immigrants' contact with it, and enhancing services such as healthcare and higher education. So now we're seeing that they're getting educated, free healthcare, money out the ass. They're getting money out the ass. Now, and the only way for this to work is that you have to have Americans sell out other Americans. You have to. That's the only way it would work, because they wouldn't be able to do this on their own. Somebody had to let them in the door, file paperwork, file documents, and let all this happen. And all the stuff you were afraid that the black people were going to do, now you got to deal with it from people on the complete eastern side of the world. And on top of that, it's not just a melanin thing, but it's also a religious thing, because they're bringing in Islam that's combating with your Christianity, which we know that there's a history of crusades that go on with those two religions. So it's almost like everything that you did from way back when without sanctuary is coming full circle, but it's coming full circle into a sense of not just karma or what goes around comes around, but it's coming full circle to a sense of leading everything closer to a one world government, because that's the end game. The end game is a one world government. This just enhances chaos. This just enhances division. This just enhances war. This just enhances this just enhances inflation and hyperinflation. This just expedites that situation. That's all that does. This just expedites that situation. That's inevitably going to happen and going to come. That's what we're seeing. Now, to kind of show the thought process of how people felt about Black Americans. I hate saying Black Americans, but I have to use that in this context. But to get people to understand how fearful people were of Black Americans, we're gonna look at a mob person, and he's gonna speak on how they felt about a guy named Frank Lucas. And if you don't know Frank Lucas, he was a drug dealer, and he got to a point where he was able to get his own connect from across the world and bring it on back, and was selling for a good price without the middleman. He cut the middleman out, did it himself. Listen to what this guy's gonna say. This dude is gonna explain the fear that people have for some odd reason of why the power that Black Americans have, but they don't want them to have it for whatever reason that is. Maybe it's because they know all the inventions that were done across America was predominantly done by, or maybe they know something that, you know, there's a deeply rooted history that goes with it, because you could only imagine if the Black Americans and anybody from the East got together and linked up minds. Imagine if the Black Americans and the Somalians were on the same page. Imagine if the Black Americans and the Africans were on the same page. Imagine if the Black Americans and the Latino Americans in South America were on the same page. Just imagine that. But listen to what this guy's going to say when he speaks on Frank Lucas having so much power that they were afraid of the power that he would get. And this is on the underworld of drug dealing. I'm gonna play this video and listen to what this guy says. Here we go.
Now, you said the Italians didn't like Frank Lucas. Why is that?
It's not that they didn't like him, is they were afraid of what he was becoming. In their eyes, it's scary for an African-American man to have that much power. And the fact of the matter is he cut out the middlemen. He went to Vietnam and he got it for $4,000 a kilo. And the rest is history, but it was like the cop said at the end, who gave you permission in here? And he didn't have permission from anybody. He said, I'm Frank Lucas.
So normally, back then, the Negro man would probably have to go to the Italians to get any type of product.
Yeah, they would. They would get it from us, you know, and they would just come every week. There was never a problem.
Now
So did you hear that? Did you hear what he said? He said they didn't want an African-American man to have that much power. Just one dude. One dude. They were afraid for one man to have all that power. The Italians was a whole freaking family. But for one dude to have all that power, they was like, nah, he needs to get it from a middleman. We don't want him to have all that power. Why is that? And it's not just the Italians, because, you know, whenever you look at the whole thing, you know, the government had their own drug dealing thing going on too. But that's another story for another day. But they didn't want an African-American man to have that much power. Just one dude. One. Just one. They were like, we just don't want him to have that much power, but yet y'all can have all that power. And it just kind of shows you like the guilt that comes with, you know, probably previously of things that were done. But now we have sanctuary cities and states now, and those are coming up. Now, are those offering a profound protection for people of melanated skin like it is the Somalians? That's the question, because it seems like whatever these sanctuary cities are doing, they're working. But again, like I said, it's two issues with that. You have the liberal mindset, which goes too far because it gets destructive. It gets way too destructive because you start pushing on LGBTQ to the kids, and that's not good for kids. And then transgenders to kids, and you start harming the children. And then you have radical Islam, and radical Islam don't play that shit. So they're gonna end up killing all these liberals who vote for them. So either way it go, the mindset of Islam is gonna prevail because they're going to out reproduce and then outvote in the voting blocks. But however, underneath all of this, it's still the current of a one world system, a one world government where an antichrist will be the ruler over everything. But let's listen to what Yuri Bezmenov has to say about when a country from the inside is ideologically subverged. And he's going to explain to you on what happens when a country does get ideologically subverged from the inside. And you can listen to what he's saying and tie into how years of this subversion is leading up to the collapse of an entire country, which is what we're seeing today. So let's go ahead and let the Yuri play this quick clip and listen to what he says. Here we go.
Ideological subversion is the slow process which we call either ideological subversion or active measures or psychological warfare. What it basically means is to change the perception of reality of every American to such an extent that despite of the abundance of information, no one is able to come to sensible conclusions in the interests of defending themselves, their families, their community, and their country. It's a great brainwashing process which goes very slow. It takes from 15 to 20 years to demoralize a nation. This is the minimum number of years which requires to educate one generation of students exposed to the ideology of the enemy. In other words, Marxism-Leninism ideology is being pumped into the soft heads of at least 3 generations of American students without being challenged or counterbalanced by the basic values of Americanism. The demoralization process in the United States is basically completed already. Most of it is done by Americans to Americans, thanks to lack of moral standards. Ideological subversion is...
Now, right here, he said this right here. Let me see if I can find it. He says it's a slow brainwashing process, but in the interest of defending themselves, their families, their community, and their country. It's a great brainwashing process that takes years and it goes very slow, but we're already here. We're already past the point of years of demoralization. We're past that point. We're here at the demoralization period, and people and people know it, and people can see it. But when you look at the demoralization period where we're at, we're exposed to the ideology of the enemy. Now again, like I say, you have to take radical Islam and liberal Christian or liberal thinkers and how they are both left-minded, but when an agenda is fulfilled, one will prevail. And that's going to be the radical Islam side that's coming in to take over a country and bring in a Marxist socialist ideology, which is what we're seeing in New York with Don't Mess with the Zohan. We're seeing that happen. But how did it all stem? I say it all stemmed from a Without Sanctuary point of view, from where we just saw the video I played with you earlier, the Without Sanctuary video about that book of how blacks were lynched like crazy and treated atrociously. And then you had the children of those people grow up and be in positions of Congress and Senates and all that stuff. But as time went on, not everybody agreed with that. Not all white people agreed with that. Not everybody was okay with that. So then they start selling out Americans by voting in people of different countries, and then them becoming LGBTQ and all that, and changing that mindset of being inside of the system, changing the system from within. So what we're seeing now is this radical change going on in the system. It's a big political battle of pull and power is what we're seeing. That's all we're seeing. It's a big political game of pull and power. That's it. And you're not supposed to, you really don't want to get in it because you don't want no part of it, because biblically you're supposed to stay out of stuff like that. But that's what we're seeing. And that's what the sanctuary states are for. The sanctuary states are to protect you from having to go through something like this ever again. Because as you see right here, a man is being hung, and these are children down here right below this dude. These are children, 2 children right here. Got to be less than like 10 years old. And that's what these sanctuaries states are providing. It seems like they're providing a way to keep the federal government away from states. However, if you can only understand this, now that we have this if we have sanctuaries, right? We put these sanctuaries in place, which they already are in place. The DOG website says it right here. Here are all the sanctuary states for now. Now, if you had these sanctuary states and then you put in a blue president, let's say if Kamala Harris would have won, what's going on now? We wouldn't hear about. We wouldn't hear about voting. We wouldn't hear about daycare centers in Minnesota. We wouldn't hear about all this fraud going on all over the place. We wouldn't have heard about none of that. Not at all. We wouldn't have heard about none of it. It would have just kept going quiet as kept under the radar. It would have kept going. And then while that's going underneath the radar, the underlying prevailing current will be the change of the religion from a Christian to a radical Islam base. That's the change that's going to happen. And that's the law, and that's the mindset that changes and prevails everything. There's a sniper. Oh my God, I'm glad I said that. There's a sniper. Where is he? Hold on, I have to find it. Nick Irving. He said this, and this is actually a good point. Let me see if I can find this real quick. Who would you take out first? Where is it? Let me see if I can find it. Let's see. Oh man, he said, I gotta find this video. I have to find this video because this makes so much sense. This made so much sense whenever he, well, anyway, him first. Okay, here we go.
You get this question right on the test.
This guy made a very good point. And they asked a question as to who he would take out first. Who was the main important person you would take out first in a war situation? Who would you get? Listen to how he broke this down. Listen to how he said this. And that's why I say this is one of the not good points. This is one of the good ways to understand a without sanctuary and a with sanctuary society. Because now Islam, or radical Islam, understands that first they have to go in and get the religion first. Once you get the religion first, then you get the people. And this is the best way I can get you to understand this, because this guy, Nick Irvin, he explained this really good. Understand the protection that sanctuary cities have, because sanctuaries are a gray area. The sanctuary policy is a gray area in law that's being utilized. And you can clearly see that it freaking works. Somehow it's working. As at least I'll say it's working so far. I don't know how long, but it's working. And we all know that the midterms are coming up here pretty soon. So Trump got his hands full because these people don't play around, because they got an agenda that they have to get across. And we've all seen how they do about agendas. But listen to what he says when it comes down to you having to fight a war. Look who he would take out first. Listen to this. This is extremely profound on what he's about to say. Let me pull this up for you so you can hear it. Here we go.
You get this question on a test. If you have 4 guys lined up, one's a machine gunner, one's a rocket guy, one's a medic, and one's the chaplain, who are you going to shoot first? Who would you shoot first?
Machine gun?
As a sniper would shoot the chaplain first.
Really?
The preacher, yeah, demoralizes the entire unit. If the sniper is willing to take out a man of God or whatever, the guy who's doing nothing, then imagine what he's going to do to anyone else. So you demoralize that unit by killing the guy of faith. You take him out first. That's the thinking and mindset of a sniper. You get this question on a test. If you have 4 guys lined up.
Demoralize the people first. Demoralize them first, which is exactly what this dude said right here. This guy said, where'd you go, Yuri? I just had you pulled up, Yuri. This is the same thing that this dude said. He said the same thing. This is exactly what he said. He said, you demoralize them first. Once you demoralize them, everything else is free game. Everything else is easy. So for him to come back and say this right here and say that if you had a rocket, a machine gun, a guy with a rocket, a medic, and a chaplain, who would you take out first? He said, I'll take out the chaplain first. You demoralize the people first. So this is what we're seeing with these sanctuary cities. These sanctuary cities are a good way to change the morality of a country. That's what we're seeing with sanctuary cities. Sanctuary cities are a good way to change the morality of a country. And if you don't believe me, just know that this is happening on a heavy way. And it's not just to demoralize a country or to take over the country. Like I said, we're working towards the world is moving towards a new world order, a one world government, a one world system, digital financial, kibosh and digital slavery on everybody. But to show you how deep it goes, it's not just sanctuary cities. You can see that the way that they're already moving and they're already in everything that you are not paying attention to. Like, for example, take a look right here. You're going to see that it's not just sanctuary cities. It's not just Congress. It's not just Senate or politics, but it's in the military. They're already in on the military. Look right here.
When I decided to become a Muslim chaplain, I knew that there were going to be associated dangers with that because of just the nature of what's going on in the world. The news footage continues to propagate this idea that Muslims are terrorists, Muslims are the bad guy, the boogeyman, they're coming to get you. Allahu Akbar.
The United States military is recruiting a new batch of Muslim chaplains. Only problem? We're recruiting them from a group with ties to terror. Could our federal government and our commander-in-chief be putting America's bravest in danger?
Now, I know that guy sat there and called them terrorists, but at the same time, when I showed you that video without sanction, what do you think the black people were calling the white people who was brutally murdering them and lynching them? It's probably the same concept. But then it doesn't stop there. It keeps going. And here.
Victory is sweeter with all the salts in your tear. Assalamu alaikum. Peace. Shalom.
See, now as you can see, like in the military of the United States, see, it's changing. It's changing. The chaplain is, all this stuff is changing. We're seeing it. It's happening all the way. And like I said, it started without sanctuary, and we saw how that went down. Change the mindset of how people think. And then you go in and you have sanctuary policies that basically put a complete, I guess, a safeguard or a block between you and the feds. So it's understanding exactly how the country works and dividing them in between. So now you have people who are okay with sanctuary cities, and then if you can get more cities to be sanctuary cities, then you literally put 2 blocks between the feds and the state. So now you have 2 different layers of protection, and then the people who are at the, I guess, the bottom layer underneath the feds are able to combine forces and fight. So like, for example, people always vote for the president, but what you don't see is people voting for, you know, their city council, their judges, their school boards, their sheriff, their all these different things they vote for. But people always pay attention to the president, but not knowing is that, look, the president's gonna go in, but he's gonna, you know, he's gonna go in, but he can only do so much. But because you've changed the mindset of everybody underneath him, so if he goes into a judge in this county to try to change something, like, it can only do so much. Because when you go and look at the judges right here, let me see, let's take a look. Like right here, for example, we have this right here, and this is not me talking negative or anything. It's just me pointing something out. Like this right here is the Minnesota U.S. District Court, District of Minnesota Post. And when I went through this and I looked at it, I had looked in how many of these people were put in by Biden. And as you can see right here, all these different people here were put in. Now, when you look at this, if this is happening, and I'm not saying nothing negative about these people whatsoever, I'm just saying like look at how the civilization and structure of the country has changed, because you always see the left side, the liberal side, always arguing about white supremacy and how they, and like I said, it's their children, their grandchildren or whatever, their children that are fighting from what they witnessed from a without sanctuary lifestyle that I showed you earlier. First it was without sanctuary. Now you're trying to raise kids into that white supremacy, angry, you know, evil mindset and that horrible energy, and they rebelled from it. And then you raise them underneath a angry white supremacy mindset, and then you send their ass to church. So now they go to church, but they looking like, but you hate. You taught me to hate. But yet you want me to grow up in a Christian environment? And I'm not saying this is all, but there are some that think this way. So you see like the whole kibosh and confusion going on, and then the change in trajectory. Now, you know, Islam goes in and chaplain in the military and in sanctuary states that are able to combine forces and able to protect themselves from the feds and be able to come. They're able to have help from the children and grandchildren of the white supremacists. So you just step back and you just watch this battle go on, and you're just like, wow, this shit's really unfolding. Like, it's really going down. Like, they're really, really going at it, you know? So seeing how these sanctuary things work, I mean, it was long overdue. It was long overdue. You can't do people like that and expect no consequences on the back end. You just can't. You can't. You can't do people like that and expect years of like no consequences, because you can't control how people feel when they see you do devilish, evil, demonic shit. And this goes for Islam as well. White supremacist Christians, even Islam, radical Islam. You can't control how your children are going to feel when they see you doing evil, demonic shit. You can't control that, especially kids. Right is right, wrong is wrong. And then you try to force them to believe in your evil ideology, but you try to make it look like a moral compass. Like, no. In due time, your own house will come crashing down. I mean, it's just like a revolving door, evolving situation, because it's not based off of faith. It's based off of politics. Everything is based off of politics and power. It's not based off of faith. You use faith as like a mask, as a bargaining position, as a belief system, as a confusion, as a stronghold to scare people, like a cult. You use it, but at the end of the day, you're just as evil as a devil. But these sanctuary cities that we see now, it was just long overdue from without sanctuaries, from when we seen previously. It's just a long overdue situation that was inevitable to happen. So what we see going on now, it's really, oh crap, what is this? So what we see going on now is it's just a long overdue situation that was bound to happen. It's just that they were so afraid of black people doing it that your own children and grandchildren from the inside knew that and said, okay, cool, we'll just get some people from over there and bring them over here. And you won't even know. And by the time you look up and realize, it'll be too damn late. We have sanctuaries. We done sent hundreds and millions of billions of dollars to different countries and built up different stuff. We got different melanated people that you didn't suspect, because we knew if we got the melanated people from within our country, you would shoot them down. So now we gave reparations to a different group of melanated people. And now you looking up and it's too late. You can't turn it back now. It's too much stuff going on. You can't stop it. You can't stop it. The sanctuary play was a great play. Whoever thought about using the sanctuary play was extremely smart to use that. They were very smart to use it. Like, again, I don't agree with the leftist ideology all the way, because they go hella too far. I can't rock with it. I can't rock with Islam because the whole Muhammad thing had been with the 6 or 9 year old girl. I can't rock with that either. But at the end of the day, just know that the political shift is a religious shift. It's shifting from a Christian to a Muslim. That's what it's shifting to. Or I'm going to say Muslim. From Christian to Islam. The faith is changing. And that's the thing that they're trying to change the most. And then they go in and use your children and get your children and raise your children up under the faith. You know what I mean? That's just what it is. That's just how it's going. And you got to be able to see your way out of it. You have to be able to see your way out of it. Because you shouldn't be focused on the politics of things, because even though you have one side arguing over, one's arguing over Jesus, one argues over Muhammad, one argues over that Jesus is God, the other one argues over that Jesus isn't God. It doesn't matter. It does matter, but it doesn't matter who is who. The fact is, you're still arguing. You're still divided. You're still conquering. You're still able to be conquered. It's still a divide and conquer tactic. At the end of the day, one's arguing over this, one's arguing over that. You're still arguing. You're not coming together to realize that it's just there's one answer, and you can't seem to get to it. Even when you put religion on the table, you still can't come to a conclusion, even though both of your books points to the answer. But you'll still fight over it. But that's what sanctuary cities are right now. In sanctuary jurisdictions, they have constitutional rights that limit their involvement in enforcing immigration laws within the 10th Amendment, supporting their stance, allegedly. I don't know. I have to dive into that deeper. But it's just to give you a good dive into understanding what a sanctuary state is and to see the state of where we're headed to in this country. Hopefully you learned something today, man. Hopefully I gave you some knowledge. Hopefully you have a good understanding. Yeah, because I didn't want to go too long, but I had to get this one off my chest. I had to sit down and figure this one out, because when I looked at this, man, I was like, man, I got to bring this to the attention, because this has been bothering me for a good minute. And I wish I could hear everything that's being said on this damn thing, but I can't hear everything. So I had to like kind of play off of my phone and like listen. So like the way I did this video, I can't hear my sound bites. I can't hear the video when it's playing. Like this one was rough to do, and I'm kind of upset that I had to do it the way I did, because the sound didn't work and it was working yesterday just fine, but whatever. But anyway, I got to get up out of here, man. Y'all have a good weekend. Hopefully y'all got some knowledge out of this today, man. I will catch y'all on Monday on the next video, man. Take care of yourself. Have a good one. Take care. Love y'all, and peace.